Serena Lal is a Wellington-based community organizer, facilitator, and cultural practitioner whose work centers people, connection, collective well-being. Practice moves fluidly across gaming, hauora, anti-racism, community spaces grounded in relationships, and a commitment to building environments where people are able to thrive and feel seen. She's been a community organizer, streaming, online consultant. She's been a community aunty in many spaces, bringing cultural grounding, solidarity, and people-first approach to the world. She's also chief executive of the Kites Trust, a lived experience-led organization committed to building a world shaped by wisdom of those with lived experience of mental distress and addictions. An active Tangata Tiriti practitioner and longtime activist, Serena's work is rooted in cultural responsibility and imagining collective futures. So please forgive me for undermining this amazing work with an over-the-top introduction of Serena Lal!
Awesome. This isn't just a game. Our world is operating exactly how it's designed. In a world in 2026, where the currency of the day is exploitation, urgency, and harm to our environment, and we're also experiencing heightened amounts of discrimination and individualism, we have to think, why is this happening? And the truth is, our world is operating exactly how it's designed. But you're in luck. You already have the skills to change the world. And you have come seemingly consensually to a training on liberation for the games community. You're welcome. So, yeah, I want the energy. It's the morning. Pretend you have caffeine in you. Yeah. And so today we're going to talk through what it means to be a liberator in the games community, in our friendships and relationships and beyond. So, before we go into that, press screen button. Who am I? So, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko gamitia whakapaparangi mai, inari, ko Fiji te kāinga, te pakaranga te whenua tapu no India aho. Ko Serena Lal aho. Kia ora. I'm Serena Lal, a liberation-centered designer, which means everything I create in my career has been about building the worlds of tomorrow and dismantling the systems of the old. Outside this, I'm lucky to be the Chief Executive of the Kites Trust, as said before, and also a Director of the New Zealand Games Festival. Woot woot! Thank you. Again, it's morning. Use the energy. Thank you. Also, I want to acknowledge that I love dragon boating, obsessed with sharks, and been in the games community since I was young, as one of the first Twitch streamers, then community managers, and events managers in Aotearoa. All of this to tell you that from all these hats, as well as a Fijian Indian woman, I'm bringing this talk with love, as a love letter to the games industry that I love so much, even though I don't work in it. So, the talk is going to go as followed. I'm going to give you some one-on-one on liberation, so you can use that word now and understand what that means, show you some examples of how it works in games, give you some calls to action on how we can learn from other industries, and then I'll give you some widows to close. Sound good? Yeah, cool. Sounds awesome. Awesome. So, what is liberation? Is the word I keep using. I feel like I should have done a drinking game about it. Liberation is the shared work, shared as being optimal, of transforming conditions, systems, and relationships that share our lives. These are the things, just to clarify, these are the quote, no one is free until we're all free, really demonstrates this idea that every harm and system of oppression is always connected. This work requires us to not just pick one pursuit, but recognize everything is connected. And so this work is both of solidarity, connection, and constant reflection. So there's 4 po that I want to talk about when it comes to a liberation, the things we should tackle. And you'll find a lot of these are the same stuff that we do when we make and create games. 1, material. Material is what we need to be alive. The food, the space, the home, the time to do this work. It's so important that we acknowledge that these are things we need to always transform to do our work well. If you can reflect on this current day and this current government, this is the first place of attack. If we are time scarce, if we're poor, we can't do this work. So it's always important to acknowledge the material resources to do this work. 2, structural. These are the rules of the game. These are the things that uphold dominant ways of thinking and empires. This is what influences our changes, our thoughts, and behaviors. So when we want to change people's behaviors, we must think about what sits underneath the iceberg driving it. 3, our relationships. It is the quality of our relationships that uphold our capacity as communities to do great things. We need our ability to navigate tension, harm, and even build repair in our friendships, workplaces, and communities. If we don't, we can't do this work alone. Like I said, it's shared work. And lastly, and low-key my favorite, our ability to imagine. If we cannot believe there's a future and an alternate perspective outside what is happening right now, there is no chance they become reality. So we need to keep believing, dreaming, and making them true. And if we're too tired and we have no dreaming and imagination, there is no hope for a greater future. I want to focus on a couple of elements and the concept of dignity. Innovation so quickly leaves people behind in this concept of shininess. Liberation work has dignity. It cares for one another and leaves no one behind. So if you're going to practice liberation, slow down and consider, who are we ensuring we are all bringing along on this movement? And lastly, we have to acknowledge power. Power and privilege is something I find that our games community often overlooks or wants to not talk about, with a little bit of sense of guilt. But I want to tell you, this power and privilege is an asset which we can use as a collective. Working in shame and paralysis isn't going to do good, team. We have to use it to make the world a better place. So, you told me, Serena, about this liberation thing, but you're at a games conference, so are you gonna make it about games? Well, yeah, obviously. So, is it shocking to find out that games are fucking powerful, right? Games are so fucking powerful. Their ability to teach us how to navigate uncertainty, navigate consequences, work together with randomos, not just our friends. The games give us the ability to learn these skills without risk, not just for ourselves, but others. I don't know how powerful that is, to have the ability to learn how to be a good person and how to be a liberator in that way. I want to also acknowledge that navigating conflict constructively and what it means to communicate under pressure, these are things we need not just in everyday life, but especially when we choose to call to arms of this duty of being a liberator. I also did research, and it pretty much said the same thing I said, but I thought to make my talk more valid, I should really just acknowledge some stuff. 2 things I want to bring up here that I think is super awesome. 1, the ability of distributed authorship. Games giving us the ability to co-create realities together. There's not many other places. You can do teamwork trainings up the wazoo, but I can tell you, games do it better. Our ability to navigate relational, emotional skill, unprecedented in games. And lastly, our ability to be annoying and finding the hole and finding the loophole and breaking things, challenging dominant thought. I can't tell you how important it is in liberation to be annoying and questioning the systems that we're in order to break them, right? Games teaches that every damn day. So, with that in mind, I want to give you 4, maybe 3, depending on time, examples of how we do this in games currently in practice. 1, has anyone heard of the uncensored library? Yeah? Cool, thank you for the energy. I'm really hearing it really loud and clear. Yes, thank you. So there's a library in the middle of Minecraft that contains banned journalism from multiple nations in a decentralized platform because in their respective countries, this information is banned because of the state-based propaganda. This was built by game modders, game creators, and activists because they wanted to ensure young people have access to freedom of knowledge and speech and have independent thought. This is games in action, guys. This is so fucking badass, right? Somebody has decided to use games to create a space of truth. And on top of that, you might be surprised to hear that they might have just opened a wing about US banned literature and banned journalism because, of course, what is happening at present. I think it's worth saying that games can be a decentralized platform for change and not have to always rely on systems and institutions to solve our answers for us. We can make them ourselves. Cool. City skylines. I want to be honest in my disclosure that I am really shit at city skylines. I keep forgetting I spend all the money and I make nothing happen, but that's not the part of this talk. Anyway, there are almost now 3 examples internationally of young people being able to build cities, their own cities, through the use of city skylines. They have built homes, communities, and parks, all through the lens of what they need. Now, planning cities is already as hard as it is, but now they said it's fun, accessible, and actually meets the needs of our people. Like, shocker. And on top of that, there's a saying. We build cities, and the cities forever build us. And I can just acknowledge that this is not just something you build now. This is going to impact generations. Games creating tools of increasing accessibility and being able to put the hands back in people is a liberatory ask and skill. Cool. Marama Tai Hauhau is a Magic Gathering-inspired game made by Māori rangatahi in Tarawhiti. This game was about what does it mean to be tangata whenua as Māori for Māori. They built a game that's based on the Māori lunar calendar as well as their own Māotiranga Māori, which we learnt yesterday as Māori knowledge systems. This game is centered around creating safe spaces for young Māori to learn and explore their own feelings and needs. But how can they use their own culture to rehearse, decide, plan, and dictate what kind of future ancestor they want to be? Games shape our identities, and these are games that are built as such. I don't know about you, but when I play Dungeons & Dragons, I always think a little bit of what about my character I'm playing that I want to embody afterwards? What am I going to learn through with them? And I feel like games like this do the same thing, our ability to reflect as characters. So, in the 2000s, a bunch of game makers, activists, and journalists built a video game for Woomba Women's Detention Centre in so-called Australia. They did this using whistleblowing, banned documentation, leaked documents, testimony, investigating journalism to tell people in so-called Australia the genuine hardships and cruelty that was happening in these spaces. Now, they could have easily just made this an article, a video, and be done with it, but they made a fucking game. They made a game so people not have the ability to empathize just a tiny bit of what is going on, and we are now compelled to act, and no other medium could do. This is what games do. This is about being a form of resistance, making a statement, and saying, we want to bring that in a way that's accessible to the people. So, because, right, if they can no tolerate something, then they get angry, we can start doing things about it, right? Cool. So, I have to put a shout out to New Zealand Games Festival as a director, but also just a fangirl of. Woo, yeah, energy, thank you, thank you. Because it's been going for 10 years, completely voluntary run, built for community, by community, with community. Games like this and community like this, we cannot think is just broke shit. And what I mean by that is something that we do when we're poor and we have nothing to left, and we make it, and then we get better and grow in our careers, and then we leave these things behind for more formal and better opportunities. We have a sense of duty to always give back to those who invested and helped us. That is the culture of reciprocity and community building. We don't do it because we need it immediately. We do it because we need to, and the community and other people need it too. So, have a think about today, alongside what Rick's call out is, what does reciprocity look to you when you have spaces like this built by other people for you? What does that culture look like? So, if I haven't tooted this horn and this point strong enough already, the ability to make and create and play games gives us the skills to build anything. And I'm asking you to use those same skills to apply and change Aotearoa as we know it. You help people care for things that they cannot see. You help them guide them through difficult conversations and make hard choices. It's a political year, guys. Those are the very same decisions and things we need to guide our communities towards at this very present. So, how do we do it? I'm going to move you to some examples about what you can learn from the other spaces outside the games industry, and then we're going to talk about more other relational skills. This is the wheel of intersectionality, and if you don't know what the word intersectionality means, it's simply talking about different forms of marginalization in our community and how they intersect with one another. I want to say that the games community is both thriving and struggling at the same time. You know what I mean? Money, people, workplaces, and that means that we're all kind of in the thick of it. But I also want to acknowledge there is so much power and privilege in this room. I'm not here to ask you what community can do for you, but what in the concept of who you are can you do for your community? Just reflect. Everyone's got something specific. It can be Kai, it can be Y, it can be a friend, a listening ear. It doesn't have to be grand. This work isn't big work, it's deep work. So really think about, and I'm calling you as an industry that ends up often leaning on its complacency and indifference and saying, well, we just do business stuff, we can make fun things, to say, actually, your skill sets and calling is deeper than that. You guide people through uncertainty and ambiguity. Cool. Here is 4 areas that I think we could play. By the way, these are my thoughts, my vibes. Take them what you will. 1, mutual aid ecosystems. I do think some of us in games expect community benefits from our workplaces and then get shocked when our workplaces don't act like community because it's a job. We need to build these relationships and infrastructure outside our workplaces because work has to be work for some level, right? We need to build and put the onus as people on what community looks like for us and build that. Mutual aid ecosystems is the idea that as solidarity with one another as people, we can all receive what we need, food, money, time, through helping each other out as a common human rights practice to each other. This could look like in other industries, people putting $5 a paycheck towards a shared bank account and monthly distributing it to other community members who need it. This could look like having a Kai circle where you bake for people who need it, who need a meal, they can't afford one. There are so many examples of what mutual aid looks like, and I just want to say to the games community here, start it, make it happen, and don't rely on our organizations to do that for us. They get to tap out whenever they want, but we will always remain. Guilds. Now, we do have collectives in Aotearoa of how we have groups that provide us to what standards and publish, but I think we should bring back the niches and guilds. Have smaller voices to be part of this larger pan-games voice. Like, these are like screen fighting guild in New Zealand and bakers guilds. Why don't we go deeper as an industry to have these smaller spaces to cross-learn, share, but then have a stronger, diverse collective voice as games? And if more people are talking about what's not tolerated, the more likely we're going to be heard and listened to. Skilled volunteers and time banking. Let's not use money as forms of currency to help one each other out. But I also want to say, when your organizations and spaces say, I want to volunteer, as an NGO leader, I'm going to tell you, outside the bubble of games, your shit blows our fucking minds. Like, if you can help NGOs, communities, and other places, you can transform things overnight. So I will tell you, when you think about volunteering, think about the unique skills you have to bring and the spaces that would appreciate it. And think about how interconnected you could be to help each other out without having to use payment when we're trying to help each other out. Peer-led spaces. The concept of peer-led is pretty much the idea that we are people, just people, who can be there for each other. We can hold support spaces, grief spaces, spaces to have a listening ear, places we can learn from each other. This happens all the time in health, social, pretty much every other sector. The idea of an independent space where we can just be people and hold support. I think sometimes as community and as a game space, we're in friendship, but we're not always in solidarity and supporting each other through hard times. And let's be explicit about that. Let's create these peer-led spaces. This is where peer support comes from. I wanted to mention Hobbitt's Law at this time because somebody said to me, but we can't unionize, Serena. And I'm like, oh, shit. So, those who don't know, Hobbitt's Law is a law that prevents collective bargaining in the games industry and a lot of our creative fields. I can't really talk too much about what that is, but I want to tell you what we can do, how the loopholes. Collective bargaining only works if you're a formal organization. It doesn't mean as individuals you can't help each other out. So, help each other out. Get on those group calls. Help each other get the transparency you need to get those best deals you can. You don't just have to submit as a formal organization. That's where it becomes our union. 2, we still can do peer spaces and sharing resources and everything I said in the last slide. That is not considered against the law, just to clarify. And also, it's a political year, guys. You know that laws can be broken and can be repealed through public submission and active. I need us as a community to be loud. Talk to our MPs. Let's start making those things that are no longer we tolerate, make them gone. Let's start making that happen. Again, it is a voting year, guys. It is a time to be loud. White supremacy. Everyone proceeds to walk out of the room. White supremacy is a dominant system in Aotearoa as an expression of colonization and being a colony. It exists in all of us as a dominant way of being. And it's something I want to acknowledge because it often is what people use to make excuses for not doing this work, which, by the way, is able by every single person here. I have QR codes for additional resources, and also I have my slides and more resources attached at the end of this talk. So I'm going to talk through what these 6 look like, and for you to reflect and see how these show up in your life, and maybe see how you can make it different. The right to comfort. This isn't the right to be comfortable. It's the right to tap out when everyone else is doing the mahi. To see your obligation as less important than everyone else's. And when there are communities who are having it hard, who can't have the option to step away, you do. This work is a choice to be sustaining and present and choosing what your level of commitment and being there is. Right to comfort is the idea that it's a bit hard for me, I'm a bit tired, I'm going to just tap out. It's actually making a declaration of what are you going to do to make yourself present through the discomfort. Because this work is a rule breaking at times, and you are going to be uncomfortable. Reciprocity. There are so many spaces in games and beyond, and probably in your own communities, where people are giving so generously that sometimes the art of reciprocity is lost. I remember growing up in my home where it was almost the extreme opposite. The right to reciprocity was forced upon you. If somebody comes and gives you a car, you're going to plan for the next day to give something back. And it wasn't out of a sad need of anxiety. It was a genuine knowing that this is how this relationship works. We're always looking for ways to give. Find ways to provide reciprocity. This isn't to be transactional. This is to always be investing in the collective good and knowing that people are being seen and recognized for their value and what they're giving. Work like community building, and especially in games, are often on the backs of femmes, women, and people of colour. It's often the most marginalised people who are giving the most. So what can you do to provide reciprocity? Perfection and shame. When I talk about white supremacy, a lot of people get a bit defensive. They get a little bit paralysed, and they worry they're going to fuck up. Yeah, you're going to fuck up. You're going to fuck up. But if you stay paralysed in that shame of being a good person, or that you're wasting everyone's time, you're wasting all of our time, you have to find ways and spaces and work through that shame. We need to be able to work through our perfectionism in order to keep trying. Because guess what? Anything we do in games, multiple iterations count. We need to keep trying and learning and trying and learning and trying and learning. And being comfortable, we exist in systems that cause harm, and we are expressions of that, not that we are just bad people who are doing bad things. But we also can't just use I didn't know as an example. We need to do the work. Urgency drains us. I understand that we have day jobs and we don't always get to control our pace. But I would like to say that outside our work, our wisest self is our most rested self. Our wiser self is our most regulated self. And the decisions we make that are most aligned to our values come from a place of rest. That is why things are trying to be intentionally rushed, so you don't make good decisions. That is an intentional process. So when you have to try, slow down. Slow down. I really recommend it. The world is pushing us to go fast, but I promise you, to make deep, right decisions does take a level of time. And conflict. Conflict is scary. The idea we can break things in order to make them better is a scary act, but it's a loving one. If we avoid the hard conversations, we cannot build a stronger collective capacity to navigate harder things. If we can't relate to the hard things within us, how do we collectivize to the hard things happening to us? We need to be able to navigate conflict and the capacity to do it well. This is a model from the Slow Factory. Again, I have links in my bio and all that fun stuff, but it talks about the fact there's a role for every person to show up in liberation. Find what looks good for you this season. Figure out how you want to be a tutu. Have a look. I know I tend to lean to being a designer, sometimes a visionary, but some people play different roles, and it's okay to change. So have a moment later on and figure out what role do you want to play in liberation. So this comes towards the end of my talk, and I want to provide you some few calls to action. I have given you a lot of information today in this semi-non-consensual training liberation training for games, community, and beyond, but I want to still provide the call to action nonetheless. What are you willing to be uncomfortable for liberation? What are you willing to be uncomfortable for? 1. 2, what is something you think you can give to your community? And this is beyond just your friends and loved ones. Community means people that you're just with and associated with and be able to sustain. This doesn't have to be large. It just needs to be somewhat consistent. 3, invest in something. Nurture a seedling. What would that be? This could be a relationship with your local iwi. This could look like helping somebody build something new, but invest in something long-term. This work sits and maybe extends beyond our own generation, but still worth doing anyway. What is one white supremacy skill you want to unlearn? What's one thing you want to uncouple and work on? And maybe early in this talk, what's one relational skill you want to start doing more of and lean into? Pick the roles, like I showed earlier, of what it means to be a liberator for you this season. What hats do you want to play? Keep playing games. Games are our ability to keep building community through joy. And I think we have to make sure not only just we play the games, but we convert those into actual forms of relationships outside those games. Let's start using games to not just design dystopian futures. Why don't we use games to build the best possible futures? I want to hear games and conversations and Dungeons and Dragons roleplay where we're talking about alternate forms of currency, alternate forms of energy. I want you to design to me the worlds that we want, and so we can bring them to reality, not just keep reminiscing in the hard worlds that we already experienced in the past. Use it. It is the theatre of the mind. Use these rooms as collective imagination sandboxes. And lastly, shared ideas can be fucking powerful. Martin Luther King's speech was always considered so powerful because it helped us transport to a sense of reality of what the world could be. And guess what? Game designers already do it. So when you have an idea, when you have a thought, don't just think them as frivolous. Put them on paper, start tattooing with it, share it. Because when you can onboard people to future realities, they become real. I want to conclude with this quote. And also, again, my slides and resources, I made a frickin' long resource list for y'all, so you can attach that later. But I want to say thank you. thank you for allowing me to have a brave space to talk with love to my games community and friends, so we can all be active liberators in both our game spaces, communities, and beyond. So let me end with this talk. Play is not a break from real life. Play is where humans rehearse the social skills real life demands. Children learn taking turns, empathy, and conflict repair through play. Adults relearn them the same way when we let ourselves. Authoritarian cultures shame adult play because adult play is dangerous to them. Thank you.